Nikolai, where are you? Third time on the stage. And together with him, Maxim Stolpasov and Anton Davidov.
Друзья, у вас традиционно 20 минут.
Friends, traditionally you have 20 minutes.
Прошел мимо, кулачок мне не дал, у меня гештальт открыт.
You've passed. Didn't give me. A gestalt has opened. Okay, close it.
Да, короче,
Sorry.
у нас, смотрите,
Погнали.
прикол в чем? Мы хотели похлевать.
Okay, the cool thing is that we wanted to only work about DDT and Python, but when we started discussing, they say, okay, you think the same way? Yes. And what about this? The same. So we didn't find the conflict of interest in order to make it more interesting. And we started to think, why don't we deploy something crazy about monolith and microservices? So whatever guys are going to speak, it doesn't mean that they think the same way, but we wanted to
Точку зрения.
think about some absurd situations and the point of view, and because both of our colleagues, they love to talk compared to the previous one, I will time them very strictly because each one of them will speak 3 minutes and then they will split and share, as like in real debate. So who wants to begin? Who wants to begin? Who wants to begin? Who wants? I'm the second.
Всё.
Okay, maybe scissors, rock,
В общем,
paper.
мой вопрос, значит, когда
My
мы говорим про
question.
микросервисы,
When we speak about monolith and microservices, it's always there's a argument around the condition. When you're in monolith, it's much similar. When in microservices, it's better to follow this and that. But what about microservices? What about state management? Domain objects, aggregates,
консистентностью данных. Вот.
consistency of data. I'd say that's my question.
Пошло, да.
The time. Yeah. Because it's the weakest part of our questions, I will go on the other way. Nobody knows how to make microservices because they're not focusing on business problems, as Fowler was said. Services is just the name and not business services and
Короче, если мы говорим про
services. So if we're speaking about
не настоящие микросервисы, о которых говорим,
not real microservices that Fowler was speaking about, then everything's bad. But if we're speaking about real microservices, where service is a business service which is doing something, then everything's much simpler because services are isolated, transactions are not needed, therefore thresholds are defined, and no extra calls between them. Therefore,
состояние синхронизировать намного проще.
the condition is much easier to be synchronized, and if you will remember that strong consistency does not exist and there's only national consistency and business only version consistency, then you can easily use any replication methods with a proper time limit of replication, and the problem should not exist.
Поэтому получаем
That's why we get this story that we have a set of business services, each one of them relatively can be isolated within themselves and nothing should be synced because it's a separate monolith. Therefore, but it's a cool thing. And then we can easily check different technical ideas and understand how it works. Therefore, if you need to throw something away, and otherwise don't think too much
состояние.
about synchronization of conditions. If it's a simple replication like in databases. Do I have a lot of time? Yeah, you still have 1.5 minutes. Oh my God. Let's move on. It's a very small point here. Yeah, we can stop and give. Can I take more time for the next one? Oh, you're smart ass.
Резюмировать
No.
коротко.
Ну, короче,
You can make a resume. Okay, briefly, the story is that if we're speaking about real microservices, which are about business services, thresholds of business services, as it was initially defined, and not that stupid shit that everybody calls, service of the users, it's a service. This is not a service because it's not about the business services. So in such a case,
изменение состояния находится только в
the condition change is only in the framework of the services, and therefore it's much simpler to synchronize the condition because it's not changing outside of the service. Therefore, this problem partially is falling away. But even though if this problem does exist, we still have financial consistency, which can be used for replication, asynchronous, and we shouldn't worry about that.
Готов?
Okay, round. Max, are you ready to answer? What about monoliths? Yeah, time's up.
Атомарность, консистентность,
Consistency,
изоляция.
isolation, atomicity, sustainability.
Раунд.
Round.
Все это есть в нашем монолите.
All this exists in monoliths, and microservices don't have it.
Те, кто работает с микросервисами,
Those who work with microservices, they look with jealousy to those who work with monoliths. What can we do? We can put the system in one request. It shouldn't be done like that, but this possibility does exist.
Те, кто работает в микросервисах,
And those who work in microservices, they look how in one call we removed everything from the base and answered to the user what can be done in microservices. Go to other microservices in order to create this answer. That's why
в монолитах,
basically in monoliths,
сервисах нет. Ну и
in microservices, it's not like that, not as easy. So
по поводу
I would like to put you a little cherry on your cake about condition change. You don't need SAGs in monolith.
определенных транзакций.
We don't have distributed transactions.
Пытался это делать.
And those who try to do that, you will understand all the beauty of the absence
В
thereof.
этом вопросе, я думаю,
That's why in the question like this,
никакого смысла здесь монолит
there is
просто
no
разрывает
sense.
микросервис.
Monolith breaks those microservices in one shot. Okay, equal round. Okay, reference. Yeah, I understand your reference. Yeah, clever guy. Well, you still have some time and we will ask more questions. Okay, let's move on. I have the next favorite topic, of course, about SRE. So what about the load? What about stability? There are different holy wars about what's better, what's holding better, what works better. Okay, Max, you were the second. Now you're going to be the first one to answer this question.
Хорошо, монолит справляется с нагрузкой.
How good Monolith about this? Well, I just got ready.
Давай я.
Okay, I'll do the
Я
first.
вот смотрел предыдущий
Okay, what do we have? I've been looking at the previous bottle,
первый по поводу Django
the first one,
микросервисов. Там
about
тоже
Django and
бедный
microservices.
Django.
They also been killing poor Django that it's not able to do something.
В целом про монолиты и нагрузку.
Generally about Monolith and load.
Shopify.
Do you know company Shopify?
На самом деле,
Shopify.
это
You know these guys, they are holding the billion of transactional operations in Monolith and they don't worry at all. Okay, let's think about it. GitHub. Okay, 10 years they've been living with Monolith and they started
Они все
breaking not because of the load. They were able to hold it. Well, normal Monolith can hold up to 50K RPS.
10К,
And if you have 10K, it's only 1% in the internet. Well, my God, let's be sincere. How many projects like that do we have? Single
что еще
numbers,
хотелось бы?
few numbers. What else I would like to say?
Очень
Well,
расхваливают микросервис за их
the microservices are too overrated for their loads, but what's the interesting story about it? You know, if you want to put down microservice, it should have tracing. Because if microservice is without tracing, then you become into the genius investigator who searches for a pimple on the body of the elephant. And no matter what it is, you create tracing. Tracing does what? Cuts our productivity by half. Then we add inter-service cooperation, which gives additional latency. Then realization of deserialization. Then you add distributed transactions.
распределенные транзакции просто
And with this distributed transaction, you just put it all and you don't have your beautiful performance of your microservices. That's it. You killed it.
раунд.
Round.
Ну что, попробуешь ответить ему?
So, will you reply? I will. Well, it's very funny in a Python track to hear examples from GitHub and Shopify written on Rails as an example of how the distributed code should be written as a previous Ruby Rails. Well, speaking about architecture, please come to Ruby Rails. Rails is very scalable, it's wonderful. But seriously speaking, GitHub and Shopify, this is not monolith because geo-replication, geo-sharing, and other things available, a lot of info. So it's more to microservices, specific distributed structures. So that's what it is. And if we're speaking about microservices, then we have wonderful story like reliability, where if one service is dropping potentially, if we're speaking about business service, it drops, other business services work. Look at Monolith. If something is going to fail, nothing is going to work. Scalability will work for specific things instead of scaling Monolith, which is 64 gigs of RAM. You can scale one service which is written on Go and it's a 30 megabyte of RAM, and you can scale it to eternity. Forgive me if you know what should be scaled, because immediately, okay, let's do it here, let's do it here. Stop, don't stop. You did have your time.
В целом мы получаем
So generally speaking, we get elasticity very high. When you have under big load, you should scale thanks to Kuber, because small service can be scaled much better than big monolith for 20,000 pods. And variability is higher, elasticity, reliability, and other characteristics. And even if it's not going to be enough, you can always go to event-driven architecture
который становится еще
style, which becomes even faster, even more distributed, even better, scaled, better reliability, etc., etc. While if you look at monolith, scalability or elasticity, they are very low in those approaches, because this is all the same monolith application. There is no modularity in architecture, etc., etc. At the same time, in monolith, there could be situation like a lot of layers, especially when you have controller, which calls object service, which calls model, which gets data from database. After this data is being realized, and then no business logic, and there's only a billion code of different layers between themselves, which does the same thing. At the same time, performance issue happens, because if you write everything on the Python or Rails, God forbid, then at a certain moment of time you have a history that you have to do something, and then you should write it on C, or you can take and make another new service on Rust or whatever is fashionable and use it, and everything's going to be wonderful. That's it.
совсем за умных еще монолиты до одного кванта масштабируются, но это...
And monolith can be scaled up to 1 quant. That's it. It's a small thing. Okay, equally, I can see in your eyes, Max, he wants to reply to all your reliability and other ability. Max, are you ready to reply, or are we going to dig deeper? Or you want to move on? Honestly speaking, I fell asleep on half of those ability. I would sleep, especially I was caught by the fact that modularity is not available. It is. Rails didn't catch you, no. Python is the slowest one, and Rails is much faster. Oh my God. When I talk to the Pythonists, they say, oh, Rails is faster, blah, 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 blah.
Ладно, окей, ты уложился, видимо,
Okay, you're able
тайминг, чем я думал.
in a smaller timing. Okay, let's move on. What about, you've been talking about the topic of stability. I liked it, but we didn't disclose it completely. What Monolith can say in reply about the failback points?
Микросервисы стали считаться стабильнее. С каких пор...
When the microservice became stable, when point of failure addition makes the system more stable. It's laugh. I'm laughing at it. I don't understand it. For example, I have a monolith. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a cool thing. I was thinking about it. You telling me that you can scale in microservices. Of course you can. Usually, immediately, like a monolith. Okay, let's scale everyone, because we don't understand where do we have the bottleneck. So we raise this one. Okay, still slow. Okay, let's lift this one. Okay, let's remember about service mesh. I don't know, STO or what are you making it of? And plus 32 resources immediately. Boom, you catch it. Oh my God. And where is this stability? Well, I can say only that if we're speaking about distributed monolith, then everything's valid, and I do agree, but we're speaking about microservices. So each one of them can do microservices and not distributed monolith, and from this point of view, it happens that even if one business service drops, it doesn't mean that you will not be able to give your money to pay for something that doesn't work on the business side and get some money for it, and generally speaking, continue your development, think about modularity. Well, I'm speaking about something else, like you have good microservices, they have good tracing, etc., and observability is pretty good, but somewhere on the path out of 5 of yours, what the distributed monolith, I'm coming to this. So it's somewhere breaks in a narrow bottleneck. Sorry, but generally the system becomes slower.
И ты
just in
не знаешь,
case.
где нужно скейлить, и
And
начинаешь
you
скейлить
don't know where you have to
систему,
scale, and you start scaling all these systems and not specific microservices. Well, wait, if you're saying that you have good observability, then it means that you know where and what, and I'm not going to repeat this word so that I wouldn't be banned.
Ты уже знаешь,
That's why you already know,
и нормально.
because you knew that you have good observability and good separation.
Ну, в монолите ты точно так же получишь.
In Monolith, you can get the same thing.
дает тебе это знание.
The availability doesn't give you this knowledge. Well, you know what is the business service, which one fails and which doesn't keep the load, and that's what you scale.
Ушел на ответ.
Well, he is eating your time for the answer, for your answer. That's what you've been giving.
Вот я поэтому говорю, что вот эти
Okay, I will define with my time. You know, these two, they have to be. But what was the question? I don't know.
ответите,
You already gave him the possibility to answer and you moved in some other direction. Okay, the next question is, we have some more time left about development process. And this is the most painful topic because if everything is understandable about the load, you understand how much it's understandable. But
разработки,
from the point of view of development, how can you build a process between people? Because people try to invent something new all the time. So let's try to have intro. Okay, how should you develop the development process with microservice architecture, with monolith, and why it should be done this way and not the other way?
Если вы
Should I begin? Okay, if you are a great wolf or a former front-ender, ex-front-ender for microservices, and because every 5 minutes new thing is being published, and every time you can use CV-driven development so that you have the coolest and best resume on the market,
много денег.
whatever market, and you get a lot of money from it.
Серьезным быть, то
If you want to be
не
serious,
хочу это говорить, но, короче, вы можете писать.
I don't want to speak about it, but you can write any language. You can use any language, and you can cover any market demands. If there's not enough of Pythons, you need Gophers. You hire more people in Gopher. They get crazy from Python. They leave. You hire Java people. Java people don't get crazy from it, and that's how you live. At the same time, business always has different stories when they need something new, and if this new by properties is different from what you've had before, then you cannot do it in monolith because you will not achieve proper characteristics. Microservices is the only approach that can be applicable for you because otherwise you cannot do it. You will have to divide all this shit into different properties, while you can easily select proper, applicable for every business service, applicable language, and you will do the swap integration with some bank which is 20-year-old. You take all Java, the rest of the code, and Python or Go. You don't touch anything else. Everything is wonderful. Everybody likes it.
Вот таких вот экспертов, как мы,
If you've been listening to experts like us,
еще, кроме
and
микросервиса, вам Kafka ты продавать.
only to the microservices you can sell Kafka, because in monolith, who will buy it from you, especially in microbusiness? But if you are a company, then vice versa. How else will you hire people only through Kafka?
Можно нанять.
Because that's the only way how you can hire real specialists.
При этом,
At the same time,
вам достаточно одного-двух.
honestly, it's enough to have 1, 2, depending on technical, skillful people who will define threshold for the services, and then you can hire genes,
Радоваться жизни.
juniors, and be happy with life because juniors will work in their own periods. But these intercommunications between services, well, you can easily process them with 1, 2 expensive, skillful guys.
В случае монолита
At the same time, in case with monolith, you have questions like the deploy price because it's always long and expensive. With microservices, these could be separate microservices which can be deployed with any time to market. For example, for C part, you need a week, and for new features, you need 1 day, and you can easily do it. If, for example, stability problems, deployability with stability because test counter, it will take a while, and microservices, you can always lift one service, you can test it, and interrelation between services can stay in a black box, and you can be happy about life. And my time is coming to an end. Yeah, 9, 8. Yes, so if you want to sell resume,
Если хотите нанимать,
microservices is your choice. If you want to hire, microservices is your choice.
ваше время. Ну что, Макс, ответишь?
Your time is up.
Я думаю,
Max, will you answer?
завершающий.
I think your answer will be the final one, and we will finish.
И время пошло.
And your time is starting.
Он так прекрасно рассказывал. Ну, просто
He was telling such a beautiful story. Just deploy and raise.
сервисы.
your selection of microservices. Well, I would like to begin by saying that, first of all,
Не нужно
for
столько людей,
monolith,
чтобы
you
микросервис.
don't need so many people as for the microservices. It's a small team which completely satisfies business by DTM in most of the cases. But when we speak about microservices, then we immediately mean that there are some distributed teams which, need SRE as like the air, they cannot live. And, you increase your headcount crazy.
Когда мы начинаем говорить про
But when you start talking about deploy and cooperation between the team, the development process as such, then we have eternal song about how these teams should cooperate. A special beauty is when
ушел нужный человек.
a certain team lost a person and he went on vacation and you're waiting until he comes back so that you would complete those changes so that our team would do something else from this feature.
История с бэклогом,
The same story with the backlog of another team. If you cannot influence it, it's has a 1 year schedule and you have to wait 1 year in order to make a new feature into production.
какой TTM? TTM мерится в рамках
What TTM? TTM is measured within one team. Oh, they have rolled up good changes. Beautiful. Another team have rolled up their own changes. Beautiful. But, well, they're about different features, but real ones. Real final complete feature was not rolled up in a sum up.
Давайте вспомним.
Especially, let's remember, have you often seen the situation that feature takes one microservice?
Просто какой-то такой
Usually, this is a very seldom animal. Usually, 2 microservices take for the feature, 3 microservices, and sometimes you have to simultaneously roll them up
как бы порознь
because they cannot work separately because legacy code, well, you didn't want to support legacy code. And then it should be deployed not once, and in order to have all these dependencies from 2 microservices, you want to support them, you need to have 3, 4 roll-ups. No convenience at all. It's all myth.
Ну и, собственно, давайте вспомним про онбординг.
And let's remember about onboarding when you get a new person in a team. And we have zoo of those microservices, zoo of languages. Oh, it's so fun to tell him what kind of a system do we have, what it consists of, and which language is being used.
Вишенка на торте.
And it was a cherry on the pie. That's it.
Ну что, на этом, я думаю, наш третий
Well,
замечательный батл подходит.
This is the end of the third battle, and let's traditionally give hands. Who votes for microservices? Voting begins.
А теперь кто за монолит?
And who is for monolith?
Не, ну там у тебя штрафной балл так-то еще за то, что ты
Well, you had a penalty point
рвался.
for entering in the wrong time.
Короче, победа.
So technically,
Да не, шутки шутками. Ну что ж,
yeah, joke. It's a joke. So thank you very much for coming, guys, for giving us such a beautiful shit on a fan.
нашим замечательным спикерам
Okay, hands to our beautiful speakers
и поделились с нами просто
and sharing with us their beautiful information and emotions, and to the moderator who drops it on the fan together with the speakers. Thank you very much. It was beautiful. Yes, friends, in 7 minutes we are going to have round table about inner source. They gave me this word on the paper. Inner source for the corporation. It's like development from within, like open source, but inside of the company.
ну, внутренняя разработка.
Something like that, but inner development. You do it here, but then they go somewhere to travel, and then from other they boop, and together.
Ну да.
Depends what you mean by travel. Okay, let's not give any spoils. Okay, wonderful, beautiful.
Хорошо.